We're going to call this podcast episode Death Valley. Yes. DEAF. Because if you come out and lose the Tiger Bowl, the Battle of the Valley, the roars will be deafening. And they'll be saying, is Brian Kelly cut out for this? Hands down. See, last podcast we did a segment that was titled, We'll Know Who They Are When. And that'll be a season-long feature that we'll go back to our analysis of each team when they face their benchmark week. And we'll see where they are, how that analysis has aged, and what do we know going into that matchup. I believe it's going to be fun, and I'm always be creative and add new dynamics and segments to the podcast. And I have another recurring segment that I like to introduce, and that's Start, Bench, Cut. We'll choose 3 games on the weekly SEC schedule. We'll start one, which would be the game that you can't miss. We'll bench one, which would be the game you put on your secondary TV, the one that you hit the back button to where the main game's on commercial. And we'll cut one. And we all know how that works. It's the game that you tend to fall asleep to on the couch with the remote in your hand. And spoiler alert, this episode certainly will be Go Tiger heavy. Need I say more? This is iHeartSEC. Let's go.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard.
Toughness of the SEC. And it's a clash with character and quality people as well as talent. Those guys have so much pride.
And I have to be better in every aspect of my game.
This is iHeartSEC
with Joe Bombo.
We need more dogs.
iHeartSEC. I'm your host, Joe Bombo. Make sure you follow on all social media platforms at Bombo ENT Group. That's at BOMBO ENT Group. And finally, college football is back within the SEC. And we have a handful of exciting matchups to kick things off. SEC, Big Ten matchups, ACC, SEC matchups, which we'll sit down later this week and break down some of those with Dan Tortora. We had some bets placed over the past week, and I went 1-0 last week, hitting on Avery Johnson's anytime touchdown at even money. And with a FanDuel boost of 50%, I turned that even money proposition into plus 150, which was easy money because he scored the first Kansas State touchdown in the first half in a field where nothing seems to be easy. I was able to place a wager last night, and we'll get to that on a later video, so make sure that you stay tuned in because, hey, we're not only giving information, we're trying to make all my listeners and all my followers profitable as well. And I'm going to do my best to make sure that anything I give you, I'm taking myself, this hands down, because I want to keep that streak going from last week. And we'll be sticking strictly to SEC, but I like to keep my streak going. Unlike Brian Kelly and the LSU Tigers, who will look to end their streak of defeats in opening week. But before we get there, I like to talk about what got us here. And with that, I have to pose the question, was Notre Dame the ceiling, or was the ceiling Brian Kelly? See, great question posed by Joe Clatt, and I would love to expound on that topic. Brian Kelly, well-renowned football coach, been around for 21 years, transcending play caller, developer of quarterbacks. I remember his days at Cincinnati, long tenure at Notre Dame, only one national championship appearance in his 21-year career, though. And when they got there, well, they were smacked by Alabama in that national championship. But yet, he's still been given opportunity after opportunity. Pass after pass. Until Notre Dame decided to finally part ways. The narrative, I believe, at that time of Brian Kelly's departure was, is there a ceiling at Notre Dame? A hard cap in modern football? The academic standards limit the recruiting pool compared to those of SEC powerhouses. The independent status, no conference title, one less marquee win, and nothing to fall back on. You're out. Recruiting base, it wasn't prominent like Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Oregon. They dominated the fertile region of the Indiana South Bend area. The image versus reality, it didn't resonate with the kids today. Nobody cares about the Lou Holtz era. Notre Dame is built to win 10, 11 games, but they struggle to stockpile the talent needed for championships. This was the narrative. LSU had more booster support. They had the greater recruiting base and plentiful talent in the Bayou, where the world will be his oyster. Meanwhile, the tough academic standards of Notre Dame has led to a lot of talented legacy players. I mean, the recruiting of Marcus Freeman is even expanding on the Carolina area. I see their footprints all over here. They just signed Thomas Davis's son at linebacker. Signed Bryant Young's son, Hall of Fame Bryant Young. Signed his son Bryce last year and made an instant impact as a freshman on special teams and defense late into the year. Both teams obviously still been able to recruit well regardless of the pivot in coaching. If you look at LSU, they've been 7th, 4th, and 9th since 2022 when Brian Kelly took over. Notre Dame, 9th, 12th, and 10th. Both within the top 15 in recruiting nationally. Yeah, of course, when they fired El Orgeron, that was a bit surprising, especially after 2 years from winning a national championship. He won that crystal ball in his 3rd year with the program. When Saban arrived, a young Saban, may I add, it took him 4 years to win that national championship. Then he moved on to Alabama. Then in comes Les Smile. 3 years, another natty. 4 more years, the Mad Hatter had more tricks up his sleeve. Another national championship for the Bayou Bengals. And the majority of that time, Kelly was down coaching in South Bend. So, here we are in this magical year, number 4, which seems to be the point where the modern day new LSU coach strikes gold. Will that be Brian Kelly? Is the question. See, Brian Kelly's track record is stellar. From 2010 to 2021 at Notre Dame, 113-40 overall. Consistently 10-plus wins from 2017 to 2021. No NCAA violations. Stabilized that program following his predecessors in Charlie Weiss, Tyrone Willingham, and Bob Davie. Played in big games. We talked about the national championship versus Alabama. College football playoff appearance in 2018, which they lost to Clemson. College football playoff appearance in 2020, which they lost to Bama again. That brings me to this point. 3 major postseason games. He was outscored 103-31. Of course, that included those 2 games versus Alabama. This led many to say he maxed out what he could do at Notre Dame. Beating most of the schedule, but not built to win at the very top. This had to be a Notre Dame structural ceiling, right? Marcus Freeman, 2022 to now. Early signs of recruiting have improved, finally starting to land more top 100 players, but not yet stacked the top 5 class like that of Alabama, LSU, Georgia, Ohio State. Freeman's teams have been competitive but inconsistent, Big wins versus Clemson in 2022. But then you get those puzzling losses like that of NIU. If we look at both teams if we look at both coaches since they joined their new programs, you have Brian Kelly 10-4, 10-3, 9-4, Citrus Bowl, ReliaQuest Bowl, Texas Bowls. Marcus Freeman 9-4, 10-3, 14-2, Gator Bowl, Sugar Bowl, National Championship loss. 3 major postseason games, outscored 103-31. That includes those 2 games versus Bama. It made me wonder, what has been Marcus Freeman's record since he has joined Notre Dame versus the SEC? So I look back on that. First year in Notre Dame, played South Carolina, won 45-38. High scoring game, but he overcame that defense and prevailed. Didn't play a SEC team in 2023. But last year, after you start getting the recruits in, you start getting a feel for the program, they played 2 SEC teams. Early in the year, they played Texas A&M, in which they won 23-13 and dominated that game pretty handily. Then in the college football playoffs, they played Georgia. Just a couple years off the national championship. They won 23-10 on their route to the college football national championship. Freeman, impressively, 3-0, 91-61 point differential in those 3 SEC games. 10-point average point differential. But I don't want to get this misconstrued because my intentions is not to pit the 2 against each other. But in all fairness, in order to find a conclusion within the question that was asked and that Joe Clapp presented to us, it's a necessity. And at this point, quite honestly, their careers are quite synonymous to each other. Freeman being a young and upcoming coach who seemed to have hit the ground running, recruiting off the field and results on the field, while Brian Kelly might have reached his peak. And he's pushing 6 to 7 RPM. He's starting a red line, which could be considered as a ceiling. This year's gonna say a lot. Because if it's not 9-4 and it's 8-5, it'll seem that he's hitting that red line. And you might have to change gears. And typically, you lose a bit. Rather if it's RPMs or power or momentum before you take off. Have we switched gears with Brian Kelly? Has he reached max horsepower? Because when I think about Brian Kelly, I think about the moments it didn't work out, unfortunately, and how he responded. Relationship with his players and not taking accountability. That's the things I remember. Outside of the success that he's had at a recognizable level. So let's not discredit that. And right now, the evidence seems to lean towards Brian Kelly being the ceiling. He modernized Notre Dame football, but couldn't scheme or recruit at an elite enough level. Freeman is showing the program itself still has some room above that bar. Will Notre Dame be back in the national title picture? Will Coach Kelly get that first monkey off his back? Week 1 will produce that answer. Chuck Manning has an upcoming test. Hell, even Tennessee, as Joey Aguilar makes his first start in Atlanta, Georgia. Syracuse, it will be waiting. As well as start, bench, and cut, which is up next. This is iHeartSEC.
Just tell me what you think about the new bill that was passed in California about players getting paid and having the right to get their own.
Man, I'm from poverty, so I obviously gonna side with that because I know I needed money. I know I was in high school without having nothing, not be able to get new cleats and stuff, and I'm the most popular dude where I was at. So, I'm with it. You know what I'm saying? Let them young dudes make their bread.
Is there anything you can think about when you was in college that you're like, man, I wish, like, the times that you went on that you're like, man, this ain't right, you know, I need to.
Nah, I mean, I wouldn't really worry about that. You know what I'm saying? I was used to being poor. You hear me? I was used to not having nothing. So I was just happy to be, you know, away from the neighborhood that I was in. So I was just excited to be in college. You know, I really wasn't worrying about nothing, you know, getting paid for nothing. I just wanted to, you know, be away, you know. So yeah, it paid off, real talk. About whatever I wanted.
iHeartSEC. I'm your host, Joe Bombo. Make sure you follow us on all social media platforms at Bombo ENT Group. And please make sure you hit the subscribe button, like, comment, share, because I always say this, I love the engagement. We always keep it respectful and keep it classy, but we're always going to keep it real, regardless of how you feel. Start, bench, cut. Each week, I'll take 3 SEC matchups and break them down. 1, the can't miss primetime start. 1's the solid bench game. You keep on the second screen, and of course, 1's getting the axe. Cut game. The one you fall asleep to with the remote in your hand. So, let's get into it. The game I'm starting, LSU versus Clemson. For all pet owners, you'll totally get this analogy. You ever have those times when you're hanging out on the couch, get up, go into the kitchen, or you're on the bed and you go into the kitchen, make you something, and you hear those footsteps. And then all of a sudden they stop. You don't even have to turn around. You know they're behind you, just watching, surveying, waiting for the slightest of crumb of food to hit the floor. As soon as that happens and you walk away, boom, they're on it. That's how this unfortunately will work for LSU. As soon as they drop this game versus Clemson, if that happens, we're on them. Everyone's on them. The questions begin. Does Brian Kelly have what it takes? Is Brian Kelly the answer for LSU? It's right there, waiting on them. And don't drop those crumbs on the floor, because the media will pick them up. We will pick them up. And it starts with this matchup week 1. And I feel Brian Kelly knows that. That's why he came out during the media day pushing the sense of urgency. He knows he has to win week 1. You cannot start your 4th year at LSU losing for the 4th straight time in a season opener. And playing Clemson, an ACC team, and lose? Oh no, he knows it. I question if it was a smart idea putting that narrative out there that this is a must-win game, because it only puts more attention on this matchup, stressing the importance of it. We all know that. Maybe he was wanting to get ahead of the narrative. Maybe. But if you lose this game, talking about Death Valley, the roars will be deafening for you to be gone, Coach Kelly. Bench. This is where the wheels begin to churn. A lot of intriguing matchups. You have Ohio State and Texas, a surprising but very captivating new game that will hijack the TV screens and more than likely primetime numbers at a noon spot. I have to bench this game. This has to be the secondary game. This is a battle of first-year quarterbacks taking over in their respective Lambos. Who will be able to keep the car on the road will be the question, because both teams have loaded defenses with offensive talent that will star on Sundays. This is a talent-heavy game, which has a lot of intrigue and the early season storyline needed to kick off a 2025 college football season. Honorable mentions. All the SEC, ACC matchups. Pick and choose which one you want. Alabama versus Florida State, which has turned into Castellanos versus everyone. He said he believes in his team and is instilling confidence. Well, it's about time to cash that check, boss. Tennessee versus Syracuse. Both teams facing challenges with new starters at quarterback. One team in Syracuse looking to keep last year's momentum rolling. The Vols looking to prove that they have not yet lost a step. And then you have South Carolina, Virginia. This is a tone setter for a Gamecock season. The Hokies, a veteran quarterback and a team that will refuse to be pushed around. South Carolina will need to do exactly that. Dominance is expected, especially from a team that has high aspirations of winning the SEC and making the college football playoffs. This team will need to hit the ground running. And to throw another cliche out there, they'll need to be hitting on all cylinders. Cut games. Take your pick. I mean, there's a slew for them over the next couple of weeks, but I'll take this game and I'll choose this one. And we'll call this the ESPN3 special. But for those that did not know, there is a football team in Long Island, and they will be playing the Florida Gators this upcoming weekend. Arkansas and Alabama A&M. Yup. And Oklahoma will be taking on Illinois State, which they're like 60, 70 plus points favorites in that game. I better not click on SEC Network at any time during this Saturday and see this trash can of a game on the TV. And with that said, I'm 100% grateful for college football and that it's back around. And we're going to dive into some of those bench games that we discussed earlier on our next episode, as we're joined by a friend of mine, Dan Tortora, aka DT. He is a sportscaster, writer, media entrepreneur, just like myself, and he hosts his own podcast, which is called Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Keep your eyes locked on the channel because SEC never sleeps, and neither do we. As always, hit the follow button. While you're at it, tap subscribe and keep the conversation going on social medias at Bombo ENT Group. I'm your host, Joe Bombo, and this is iHeartSEC. Until next time, my friends.